I've just been so happy from the moment that I met him. It's just like we go out on a date, which was just like amazing. We talked, it was amazing.
You've never had this kind of feeling before, right? No? Obviously not. 17 magazine. Yes!
It's a sophisticated little girl, and
For 12 straight years, Hollywood's most talked about ex-wife didn't say a word, not one slip, not one crack. But on April 18th, the second her daughter Suri turned 18, that silence stopped being survival and turned into power.
magical.
She's a great girl and she's doing so well. And I'm enjoying this time.
For years, the public only saw polished smiles, Katie Holmes walking New York streets, glowing magazine covers, calm and unbothered. But behind the scenes, insiders say the truth was way heavier. This wasn't just privacy, it was pressure, legal pressure. Sources claim Katie was locked into what lawyers call an iron-tight agreement, crafted by Tom Cruise's camp, built to keep certain subjects completely off limits. One rule stood above the rest: don't speak on Scientology, or risk everything. That wasn't a rumor, that was leverage. But here's where the game flipped. That control only worked while custody laws applied. And now, that chapter is closed. Suri is legally an adult. The reported $400,000 a year child support checks are done. The legal grip? Gone. That wall protecting Hollywood's action king is starting to crack. At 45, Katie Holmes played the long game and won. The countdown hit 0, and for the first time since 2012, she's moving with nothing holding her back. And to really understand how deep this ran, you have to rewind to where it all began. This wasn't destiny, and it definitely wasn't some random meet-cute at a Hollywood party. According to deep investigations, the situation was already decided before Katie Holmes ever stepped into the room. This wasn't romance, it was selection. Sources claim the role of Tom Cruise's wife was quietly floated to multiple young Hollywood actresses first. Big names were allegedly reviewed, discussed, and then suddenly backed out. Why? Because they sensed the truth. This felt less like love and more like a binding contract. Most ran the other way, but Katie stood out. She was young, starstruck, and had openly admitted to a childhood crush on Tom. Once she was chosen, the system kicked into overdrive. The shift was almost instant. Within weeks, the bubbly girl next door from Ohio disappeared. In her place stood a controlled, camera-ready figure who moved, dressed, and spoke with caution. Her casual clothes, gone. Jeans and sneakers allegedly tossed out and replaced with designer gowns and towering heels, worn everywhere, even for everyday errands. But that was just the surface-level change. Behind the scenes, the real grip tightened. Katie was suddenly never alone. A new best friend appeared, assigned, not chosen. This minder hovered just out of sight during interviews. When questions came, Katie often glanced sideways before answering. Sometimes, the minder even spoke for her. Insiders describe it as classic love bombing, non-stop luxury, private jets, non-stop attention, all while quietly cutting her off from the people who truly knew her. She wasn't just falling in love, she was being reshaped, rewired, reprogrammed. By April 2006, just days before the baby arrived, something unsettling went down. A delivery truck pulled up to the Beverly Hills mansion, but it wasn't flowers, balloons, or baby gifts. Instead, it delivered massive professional signs with one chilling order: be silent and keep all movements slow and controlled. No emotion, no noise, no questions. This marked the start of what insiders call a silent birth. According to the rules, the delivery room had to stay completely quiet. Doctors couldn't say push. Nurses weren't allowed to offer comforting words if things got tense. Everything had to be done with hand signals only. The belief behind it? That spoken words during pain could leave lasting mental scars on the baby. Katie was allowed to cry out if she had to, but everyone around her had to stay stone-faced and silent, cold, detached. And that silence didn't stop after delivery. Reports claim that once the baby was born, both mother and child were kept in a controlled, quiet space. Some sources even say adults were discouraged from speaking near the newborn for up to 7 days. No bonding talk, no soft words. After that moment, the control on Katie's life clamped down even harder. She was never alone. A woman named Jessica Fishbach, described as a high-ranking member of the organization, was assigned as her new best friend. But insiders say this wasn't friendship. It was supervision, a handler. And during interviews, reporters started noticing something deeply unsettling. Whenever someone asked Katie a question, the pattern was impossible to ignore. She wouldn't answer right away. She'd glance sideways, straight at Jessica, almost like she was waiting for permission. And many times Jessica didn't wait. She answered for her. In one well-known interview with W Magazine, the reporter later described Jessica acting like a human shield, hovering close, watching every word, every breath, every reaction. Nothing slipped. Nothing was spontaneous. Slowly, Katie's old life was wiped clean. Her original manager? Gone. Her longtime agent? Fired. Friends from before the marriage? Quietly pushed out of the picture, one by one. Inside the gates, she was surrounded only by staff she didn't choose. Privacy didn't exist. Phone calls were monitored, emails checked, every move tracked. On the outside, she was one of the most famous women on the planet. But behind those walls, she was living in something far darker, a cage dressed up as luxury. And she could feel it. She wasn't just being photographed. She was being watched. But cameras weren't what finally broke her. The real fear came from a date on the calendar. Suri had just turned 6 years old. To most families, that means school, friends, and playgrounds. But inside Tom's world, 6 meant something else entirely. Katie allegedly discovered plans to send her daughter to a place called the Sea Org. This wasn't a summer program. This was the hardline paramilitary arm of the organization. Members wear uniforms, work non-stop. And the most chilling part? The contract. You don't sign up for a few years. You sign for 1 billion years, a lifetime, and every lifetime after that, forever. Katie was reportedly terrified that Suri was about to be sent away to a training ship known as the Free Winds. This wasn't paranoia. This was fear rooted in reality. She believed her daughter could be separated from her, heavily influenced and molded into a loyal soldier for the organization before she was old enough to understand what was happening. And Katie didn't need to imagine how that story ends. She had living proof right in front of her. Tom had 2 other children, Isabella and Connor, adopted during his marriage to Nicole Kidman. After their divorce, the children stayed with Tom and were raised entirely within the church. What followed became Katie's worst nightmare unfolding in real time. Reports say Isabella and Connor stopped calling Nicole Mom. They didn't maintain a relationship with her at all. Inside the belief system, Nicole was labeled a suppressive person. someone considered dangerous for questioning or criticizing the group. And once that label is applied, the rules are ruthless. Contact is cut off completely. No calls, no visits, no relationship. Katie watched as two children treated their own mother like a stranger. Not out of cruelty, but conditioning. That's when it hit her. If she didn't act now, this would be Suri's future too. Her daughter could be taught to reject her, to see her own mother as an enemy. The clock was ticking loudly. If Suri went any deeper into that world, Katie believed she could lose her forever. And she knew one thing for sure. This wasn't something she could fix with a conversation or a quiet separation. Tom was never going to let Suri go, not willingly. Katie knew that asking nicely wasn't an option. If she wanted her daughter free, she needed a plan so quiet and so sudden that even Tom Cruise wouldn't realize what happened until the door was already slammed shut. And it all started with something small, cheap, easy to miss. In June 2012, Katie Holmes didn't just call a lawyer. She launched a full-blown covert operation. The kind that would make a spy movie look basic. She knew one mistake could blow everything up. Using her normal phone? Impossible. So she switched tactics. A burner phone, bought with cash by a trusted friend. No name, no trail. That little piece of plastic became her lifeline. But Katie didn't stop there. She knew she wasn't just up against a powerful actor. She was facing a massive system that hates losing. So she layered her defense. Instead of hiring one lawyer, she secretly hired 3 different law firms across 3 different states. No single point of failure, no clear target. While she was quietly planning from a hidden apartment in New York, Tom was completely distracted. He was thousands of miles away in Iceland, busy filming his sci-fi movie Oblivion. To him, everything looked normal. Calm, safe. He later admitted he never saw it coming, not even close, total blindside. And then came the real chess move. Tom likely expected the fight to happen in California, where joint custody is common, where the odds would favor him. But Katie wasn't playing checkers. She was playing to win. And the next move changed everything. That setup would have meant shared control. And if that happened, Tom could still push Suri into Scientology-linked schools and environments. Katie wasn't about to gamble her daughter's future like that. Not for a second. So she waited. She didn't file in California. She waited until she was firmly planted in New York. Why? Because New York law plays by different rules. Courts there are far more willing to grant sole custody when circumstances demand it. That move boxed Tom in completely. No escape routes, no time to react. This wasn't just about ending a marriage. Katie was fighting for total control over Suri's future. And she struck while Tom was stuck on a movie set, thousands of miles away, unable to intervene. The man known for playing unstoppable action heroes suddenly had no power at all, no stunt, no last-minute save. Katie flipped the entire script. For the first time, she was calling every shot. Hollywood divorces usually turn into endless wars. They drag on for years, they burn millions. Just look at Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, still tangled up after 7 years. But Katie Holmes did the unthinkable. She finalized her divorce from Tom Cruise in just 11 days. 11! That speed wasn't luck, it was strategy, and it came at a cost. Insiders say Katie bought her freedom using the one thing everyone wanted most, her silence. Reports later surfaced of a secret golden handcuffs clause buried deep inside the settlement. And that clause, it explains everything that came next. The terms were ruthless. Allegedly, Katie was barred from embarrassing Tom Cruise or speaking publicly about Church of Scientology. But the real shocker? She was reportedly forbidden from publicly dating for 5 full years. No red carpets, no hand-holding, no soft launches. It sounds wild until you line up the dates. About a year after the divorce, rumors swirled that Katie was seeing Jamie Foxx. But for years, they were basically invisible. No photos, no confirmations. They dodged cameras, exited events separately, hid behind cars, and stayed silent. Not because they wanted mystery, because the clock was ticking. Then in 2017, exactly 5 years after the divorce papers were signed, everything changed. Boom! Katie and Jamie were photographed holding hands on a beach. Just like that. The restriction was gone. The timer hit 0. She had officially served her time. But the financial sacrifice? Even bigger. Katie had a prenup, but she still could have fought for a massive share of Tom's estimated $250 million empire. She didn't. She walked away with 0 spousal support. Instead, she accepted $400,000 a year in child support. To regular people, that sounds huge, but for someone worth nearly $1 billion, that's pocket change. And that's because Katie wasn't chasing money, she was securing control. She took less to protect her daughter's future and avoid restrictive schooling paths. She paid in silence, secrecy, and sacrifice. But in return, she got the one thing money can't replace: freedom. Subscribe to Juicy Reel now. Because stories like this only get deeper, darker, and wilder from here. Suri's future was always the endgame, and even after Katie secured her freedom, this story was never really over, because now, everything has changed. Suri is 18, the legal walls are coming down, and the moment everyone waited over a decade for has finally arrived. Fast forward to right now. Katie Holmes is 45 and the clock officially ran out. For years, people were convinced this would be the explosion. The tell-all interviews, the blockbuster book deal, the scorched earth confessions aimed straight at the Church of Scientology. Everyone expected Katie to finally talk. But that's not what happened. She didn't say a single word. No press tour, no memoir, no revenge headlines. Instead, the real outcome played out quietly, right in front of everyone's eyes. Because Suri isn't part of Scientology. She's not being trained for the Sea Org. She's not living inside that world at all. She's just a normal college student at Carnegie Mellon University. No uniforms, no isolation, no doctrine. And here's the part that speaks louder than any interview ever could. She dropped her father's famous last name entirely. On campus, she introduces herself simply as Suri Noel. No Hollywood branding, no legacy pressure. Yes, Tom Cruise still covers the tuition, roughly $65,000 a year, just like the agreement required. But beyond the checks, he's absent, a ghost. He hasn't been seen publicly with his daughter in years. That silence everyone expected from Katie? It wasn't weakness, it was strategy. She didn't need to expose anyone. She didn't need to burn anything down. Her victory is walking across a college campus, free, independent, and untouched by the world she was almost pulled into. That's the ending no contract could stop, and the one outcome money couldn't buy. Subscribe to Juicy Reel, because when silence speaks this loud, you know the real story runs even deeper. And that's what makes this ending so unsettling and so powerful. There was no courtroom explosion, no public takedown, no viral confession tour, just distance, silence, and a clean break that speaks louder than any headline ever could, because in Hollywood, silence is rare and expensive, and Katie Holmes paid that price without flinching. For years, people assumed fear kept her quiet, that she was still controlled, still boxed in. But looking at the outcome now, it's clear this wasn't fear, this was precision. Katie didn't need to rewrite history, she rewrote the future. While the world waited for her to expose Tom Cruise, she focused on one thing only: raising a daughter who could choose her own life. And she succeeded. Suri grew up outside the spotlight. No reality shows, no child star pipeline, no public pressure, no forced belief system. She wasn't molded into an image, she was allowed to become herself. That's the part nobody can spin. No lawyer can undo it. No contract can erase it. The outcome already exists. Katie Holmes didn't win by speaking, she won by outlasting. Hollywood runs on control, access, and silence for sale. And somehow, she navigated all three without losing the one thing that mattered most. Now the industry watches quietly, because if Katie ever did decide to talk, every door would fly open instantly. The offers would be massive, the demand unstoppable. But the scariest part for everyone involved, she doesn't need to. Her story is already written in college dorms, normal friendships, quiet independence, and a last name deliberately left behind. And that's the kind of victory no powerhouse, no institution, and no amount of money can ever reverse. Subscribe to Juicy Reel, because when a story ends this quietly, you know there's still more truth hiding in plain sight. And here's the part that still rattles Hollywood insiders. Even after everything, Katie Holmes never broke character. No leaks, no whispers, no anonymous sources close to the situation, spilling secrets for cash. In an industry built on oversharing, that level of discipline is almost unheard of. Think about it. One interview, one sit down, one carefully worded quote, that's all it would have taken to flip the internet upside down. Publishers were reportedly circling, media outlets were ready, but Katie stayed quiet, not because she had to, but because she chose to. And that choice sends a message louder than any accusation ever could. Meanwhile, Tom Cruise keeps doing what he's always done. Movies, premieres, red carpets, controlled appearances. The image stays polished, the smile stays fixed. But one thing hasn't changed. His daughter is missing from that picture. No birthdays, no graduations, no public milestones, just distance, years of it. And then there's the organization hovering quietly in the background, the Church of Scientology, never named directly by Katie, never challenged publicly, but undeniably avoided in real-life outcomes. That's the real plot twist. Katie didn't expose the system. She escaped it. She didn't fight publicly. She maneuvered privately. She didn't burn bridges. She walked away with her daughter and never looked back. In Hollywood, winning usually looks loud, flashy, expensive. But this win, it's subtle, surgical, and permanent. Because time passed, contracts expired, control faded, and the final result is already visible. A mother free, a daughter independent, and a silence so intentional it forces everyone else to fill in the blanks. That's not weakness, that's power played at the highest level. Subscribe to Juicy Reel, because the quietest victories always hide the wildest truths, and this story is far from the last one like it. In the end, his role was reduced to one thing, a bank account. The checks cleared, the obligations were met, but the connection was gone. And that's the part no contract can repair. Katie Holmes' silence was never weakness. It was a weapon, carefully chosen and perfectly timed. She understood something most people don't. Speaking out wouldn't have freed her daughter. It would have dragged her right back into the chaos, the headlines, the speculation, the pressure. And Katie refused to let that happen. So instead of yelling the truth, she shielded it. She built a wall so quiet, so clean, and so unbreakable that even Tom Cruise couldn't punch through it. The final verdict is painfully simple. Tom kept his secrets. The image stayed intact. The career rolled on. But in the process, he lost the one thing no amount of fame can replace: his family. Katie Holmes lost her voice for a while. Years, actually. She swallowed interviews, ignored opportunities, walked away from easy money, but in exchange, she saved her child from a life she didn't choose. She didn't need to win a courtroom battle. She didn't need to expose anyone publicly. She didn't need revenge. She just needed to outlast the system. And when you look at Suri today, independent, educated, living quietly on her own terms, the outcome speaks for itself. No indoctrination, no isolation, no forced path. Katie didn't just survive this story. She won it. Not with noise, not with headlines, but with patience, precision, and protection. That's not just a Hollywood story. That's a masterclass in quiet power. Subscribe to Juicy Real because the real victories are never the loudest ones. And the next story is already waiting.